I wish you luck in realizing your ambition.
Wait, I think another Everything Possible in Elden Ring is coming. Hey everyone, it's Blue Lizard Jello, and welcome back to Everything Possible in Elden Ring. Last time, we brought a mausoleum to its knees, investigated our second ever jail, and we got whisked away to the capital Leyndell. And today, at long last, we will be tackling the rest of the Weeping Peninsula, including Fort Morne at the very end. After that, most of Limgrave and Weeping Peninsula will be completed, and we'll be making our way to our very first legacy dungeon, Stormveil Castle. But first, we need to talk a little bit about the plan, starting with the gear we're using, at least to start. This is actually going to be swapped out shortly after, we begin, honestly. But we're going to start with the large club. Now, this does have the Sacred Blade Ash of War equipped. We have the dagger with Golden Vow, a finger seal. For our fashion today, we have the Iron Helmet, Scale Armor, Gauntlets, Foot Soldier Greaves. My talisman is the Axe Talisman, which enhances our charge attacks. I have our Flask of Crimson Tears. Right now, I have it allocated to only have the Flask of Crimson Tears, but that will be changing as well. The Flask of Wondrous Physic, which has the Spiked Crack Tier and Strength Not Crystal Tier. I have some Holy Water Pots, and I have the Bewitching Branches. That is going to come into play sometime later. Now, here are my stats if you want to go ahead and pause, and I'll talk about the incantations I have momentarily. And I do have to call out the elephant in the room, albeit a very small, possibly even invisible elephant in the room. This is not the same character as my previous episodes. In fact, I'm not even on the same console. The previous episodes were all recorded on the PlayStation 5. This is now on the PC. I'm happy to say that I do have the 4K version up and running and recording, which is exciting. However, I had to start completely over. Twice. I got a character exactly up to this point before, had the same stats, the gear, everything, and was ready to go. And when I went to record, I realized I had overridden that save and didn't have another backup. So once again, through several streams, hanging out with many of you, I was able to get this character back up to the exact same state, with the only minor differences being some of the loot that I've collected as random drops from enemies. So if you notice any discrepancies between this character and the one from the previous 17 episodes, that is why. However, all the stats are the same, and all of the definite loot, the guaranteed loot that you can collect, is the same. So we are going to be starting by killing a boss at night. Now, this boss is one that we've actually killed before, albeit in a different location. This was in Limgrave, but we do have a Deathbird to fight, which is why I have so many holy accoutrements with us. What we're going to do, now the Deathbird's going to be over to the west from us. Go ahead and grab these golden runes. This is where we collected the map previously. We grabbed that just to make it easier to navigate the Weeping Peninsula. And dead ahead, you can see that there is a sentinel that's taking pot shots at us. What I'm going to do is I'm going to deftly avoid his arrows. Wasn't sure if that was going to hit me, and I'm going to pick up a golden seed from this little golden tree. Now, of course, golden seeds are used to increase the number of uses of our crimson and cerulean flasks. However, we are now at the stage of the game where we need 2 in order to upgrade it. And that is just the first of the 2, so we won't be able to do a whole lot with it. Okay, Serpentine, as always. We've killed the sentinels before, these giant golems, a couple times. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hop off. I'm going to start with some charge attacks. Bring him down prone and go ahead and take him out with a critical attack to the chest. There we have it. What do we get? Some giant arrows. Great arrows. Same thing. And just to be on the safe side, I'm going to grab the Site of Grace that's right inside Castle Morne, or Fort Morne. Go ahead and grab that. We don't have any need to rest, so I won't bother doing that. But that at least gives us a spot in case we die or if we need to teleport. Now let's take a look at the time. We're about halfway through. We should be okay. So looking northward, over to the left, right about that direction is where the Deathbird is. There's a little bit of loot over to the right. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to head this way. There are some sheep here if you want to farm for some thin beast bones. But I'm going to head to the beach. There is a pack of dogs that we need to deal with, which will probably cause me more trouble than the Deathbird, honestly. Let's see how we can handle these. Oh, perfect. Just a single hit and miss everything else. That works. That does not. Perfect. There we go. You can see that we do have a teardrop scarab over there, just in case you need to refill your crimson flasks. Maybe I should just speed this up. Okay, one hit. Jump. There we go. Easy. And all of that so we can get a golden rune level 1. That's right, the exact same golden rune that you get just from crushing all of those golden skulls. A few Guillemot up here on the ridge. Now what we're aiming for is just past this ruin right here. In fact, that large arched ruin directly ahead, that is where the Deathbird's going to spawn. But there are some man beasts, these giant flying bats, and we don't really want them interfering. So as long as I stay fairly low, I should be okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to prepare. I'm going to use my Flask of Wondrous Physic. I have my Holy Water Pot as a backup. But I'm going to get my dagger equipped so I can use Golden Vow. There it is. Now let's back up, because those man beasts are going to patrol from just beyond that ruin to this ledge over here. So let's go ahead, cast Golden Vow, switch back to the large club, and see if we can get... Oh, perfect. Now, ultimately what I would like to do is get some charge R2s, because that is what this build is all about. Okay, we're aiming for this head here. You can see just the incredible damage that this puts out because of the holy damage and my charge attacks. Back up. Almost got him. Now we could finish him off with a holy water pot, but just to show the melee approach. And again. There we go. Not too bad at all. Deathbird number 2 down, and we get the Sacrificial Axe. Now, I think people tend to sleep on the Sacrificial Axe. As a weapon itself, it is nothing special, but its bonus is something really, really interesting. So if I put it in my offhand, the Sacrificial Axe does take 16 strength in order to one-hand, along with 10 dexterity. It does mention that the Deathbird is depicted as a malevolent deity, and look at the design on that axe. But it also mentions that a small amount of FP is restored upon slaying a foe. Every enemy we kill, either with this axe or simply having it equipped in an active slot, we will get 4 FP back per kill. What I mean by an active slot is simply this. I don't have to get the kill with it, I just need to have it in the active slot so you can see it on the directional pad in the bottom left. So if I two-hand my large club right now, I'm going to be getting 4 FP back for every kill that I get with the club. And that is every kill, including creatures. So if I kill this poor sheep right here, I'm going to get 4 FP back. Not too bad. So if you're focused on low-level incantations or sorceries, having the Sacrificial Axe in your offhand to slowly regenerate that FP can actually be pretty beneficial. Right, just picking up some tarnished golden sunflowers, not that we need them. We can very easily get those in Limgrave, right past the War Master Shack. Here are the man beasts here, the giant bats. I'm not actually too concerned about killing them. We've killed several. But what we're going to do is we're actually going to cut across the main path. You can see that just below us. Can't quite see it. Just to kind of give you exactly where we're at. There it is. There's the small golden tree. The sentinel has not responded, so we're just going to be cutting across. There is a teardrop scarab we're going to kill for a new incantation. And just a few more bits of loot to collect along the way. Now this scarab is a bit interesting. You can tell it looks a little bit different. Let's see if I can actually zoom in. Use my telescope here. So that color actually indicates that this scarab is going to teleport. If you're quick, and especially if you're using a large melee weapon, like the large club, and you charge up your L2 or R2, depending on what side you want to swing on, you can usually run right past it and hit it and get the kill. If not, if it does teleport away, you just have to find its new location, and I'm going to show that off instead of trying to get the instant kill. There we go, and you can see there it is, just east of us. But now, if I start going nice and quick, hold down my R2. Don't even try and get the swing, just hold it down so you hit it while you're dragging it. And we get Poison Mist. Poison Mist is an incantation that requires 12 faith in order to use. It costs 18 FP in order to cast, and it does mention the Servants of Rot. It does not alert enemies, and it does not wake them up if they're sleeping. What it does is that it inflicts 20 poison buildup per tick. Now, previously, when the game first launched, it was only 10 buildup per tick, but this was increased in patch 1.07, doubling its effectiveness. Number of man beasts just north of us, we're going to ignore them. Again, we don't really have any need to kill them other than to refill our FP. So I'm just going to give them a bit of a wide berth. And what I'm looking for is this Misbegotten right here. And I'm just going to leap off of Torrent. Get a nice, hopefully, charge attack. There we go. Get the critical. Not quite dead, but there we go. Get some more FP, and we get a Smithing Stone level 1. Heading back on Torrent here. Once again, just avoiding the man beast. You can kill them if you wish. I find them to be more trouble than they're worth. Although occasionally you can get, I believe, a Golden Rune level 2 to drop from them in this area. Hugging the cliff, several more Guillemot if you want to farm for the 4-fingered foul feet. 4-toed? Yeah, 4-toed. They don't actually have fingers. The fingers would be what the wings have evolved from. Now, what's really interesting is that we have this little poison swamp, because of course we have a poison swamp. There are some crucifixes dotted around. We have these wandering zombie poison creatures around. There's also plenty of poison bloom if you want to collect it. And because it is nighttime, we're going to hear these crucifixes screaming. But what I want is to just avoid all these enemies and avoid the giant swamp crabs that are going to pop out. And we're just going to make our way up these rocks. A little bit more here. And just at this crucifix, we have a Golden Rune level 4. There's also some slimes in there, but again, we are not interested in killing any enemies that we don't have to at this juncture. Let's just get the loot. Let's get out. Straight ahead, there is Fort Morne. We do have a lore sword coming up here, but we also have this little area with some very, very angry jellyfish. Unfortunately, there's no way to get these jellyfish not to aggro, so what I'm going to do is, just for fun, hopefully to make it a little bit quicker as well, let's use some Golden Vow, which used everything I had, so we're not going to be able to use Sacred Blade, which was the plan. But we can miss if we really try. Okay. 2 hits with the charge attack, which is nice. I also just realized that we're actually in heavy load, aren't we? Bit of a shame. That's alright, we're going to be changing up the build here as soon as we get to the fort. Don't accidentally roll off. There we go. Couple of bits of loot here. We have a Smithing Stone, Somber Smithing Stone level 2, and 1 single Arteria Leaf. Why were these people just poised on the edge to look out into the nothingness? Your guess? As good as mine, probably better. Heading up just on top of these cliffs here and hopping off so we can read this lore sword. The Siege of Castle Morne. A lone hero fights for his vengeance only to fall at the hand of Lord Godfrey. Now, we will actually talk more about this sword when we get to the final boss of Castle Morne, because there is a little bit to say, and there's some really good lore videos out there. There's a lot of speculation regarding this castle. When it fell, why it fell, who is the original leader. Now we're just going along the side just to get this 1 single Trina's Lily, and that actually concludes all of the loot to be found outside of Castle Morne. Next, we're going to be heading inside and completely changing this build-up. And we did already have the Site of Grace, so in theory, we could have just teleported there. But instead, let's go ahead and grab this, and we're going to be changing up pretty much everything, starting with our Wondrous Physic. I'm not going to be using charge attacks. I'm not even going to be using the large club, so I don't need the Strength Knot. Instead, what I want to use is the Opaline Bubble Tier. Remember, we got this from the Erdtree avatar earlier in the Weaving Peninsula, and this will reduce all damage by 90% for 3 minutes or until hit. It is worth 1 single hit. And the other tier that I'll use is simply the Crimson Burst Crystal tier to get that restoration over time. I'm also going to be changing up our flask. We are going to be using quite a bit of FP in this next run, so I want to keep at least a couple of Crimson Flasks on the reserve. There are some more Sites of Grace within the castle, but I think 2 and 4, 2 Crimson and 4 Cerulean ought to do. Now, I mentioned I was going to talk about the spells, but since we haven't used them, I didn't really feel necessary just yet. But we have Urgent Heal, Rejection, Catch Flame, and Flame Sling. Rejection can be really good in the coming area for any of the Misbegotten who take flight. Urgent Heal, essentially this is half as good as regular heal, but why I like Urgent Heal, at least in some circumstances, is that it doesn't require as much FP. It requires exactly half of the FP as heal. So if I only want to touch up my health just a little bit, I can use Urgent Heal. Now, as for the gear changes. Now, I've already made the changes off camera, but let me run through what I have equipped. I have the Uchi Katana and the Sacrificial Axe, and a really interesting fact about the Sacrificial Axe that I'll be honest, I only just noticed, and I'll talk about it here in a moment. Don't need these great arrows. Still have the same armor. I do have the Dragon Crest Shield Talisman, just for a little bit more damage negation. I've already touched on the Flask and the Flask of Wondrous Physic. However, I left the Holy Water Pots, and I actually meant to store those. I mentioned this a few episodes ago, but if you store your pots, the ones that you have crafted, it gives you the cracked pots back so you can craft new ones. And that's what I want to do because the Holy Water Pots won't be nearly as effective as, say, the Fire Pots. So let's go ahead and go to our sort chest. And I am just going to store all 5 of those. Perfect. That will allow me to craft some additional ones. Now, just a couple other quick things to prepare before we head inside. I'm going to make some more fire pots, make as many as I can. We should have a total of 6 now. There we have it. And I'm also going to put on some throwables. I did buy some kukris earlier on just to use up some of my runes. So I'm going to put kukris on, and we'll be using those to pull enemies as we go. This looks like a sufficient setup. So let's head inside Castle Morne. Now, one of the reasons why I love the Uchi Katana is its backstep R1 attack. And if you're like me, always send the elevator down just in case. The backstep R1 is a nice long sweeping attack from bottom to top. This gives you a really good opportunity to catch enemies as they're approaching or directly after they've already landed an attack. These Misbegotten, of which there are many, and we'll talk about why that is here soon, they will often lead their attack with some sort of jumping assault. Either they'll try to pounce on you or they'll jump and try to slam their axe down. If you just take a couple steps backwards and then backstep and follow it up with an R2 or backstep followed by an unsheath, it is a really good way of clearing them out pretty quickly. So first, up these stairs we have a couple of doggos. That one shouldn't pay any mind, but this one, dispatched nice and quickly. Already getting some FP back that we haven't even used. Smithing Stone level 2, perfect. Now you can hear the sounds of battles going on. You can even see some of it coming through the walls there. Castle Morne was not run by the Misbegotten. The Misbegotten were actually the servants of Castle Morne, and what we're seeing here is the result of a very nasty, very deadly rebellion. And right now, the leader, quote-unquote, of Castle Morne is in fact a much bigger, much more dangerous version of the Misbegotten. So up on this pile of corpses, surrounded by the fires, we do have a number of dogs. Now this one is already on me, so let's go ahead and see if we can't employ backstep R1. That's exactly what I want to see. And from here, because we don't want to pull too many, we may need to employ our kukris. Go ahead and do that on this one. You could even probably just kill him with a couple of them. Well, if I didn't miss. That damage is just really, really good. All right, just double checking. We're good here. So we do have another one of the Mad Pumpkin heads over here. We're actually going to have some fun with him in just a little bit. But first, let's start clearing these Misbegotten. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit them with a kukri one at a time. That damage is just crazy. Back up, and whoop. Not quite perfect there. I was looking for the backstep R1, but wasn't quite far back enough. Once again, back up. There it is, perfect. And there's another. Let's go ahead and grab another, and this time let's try to use the unsheath skill. There we go. Now that time didn't actually lead with the jumping attack, but you can see that typically they do. I'm just playing this safe. That's a lot of enemies. There we go. And because we're getting 4 FP back per kill, it essentially reduces our unsheathed skill FP pretty drastically. Let's just grab some smoldering butterflies. We're not going to kill them all, because like I said, we're going to have fun with that Mad Pumpkin head. Now that was a roll instead, but still. The theory is still there. You can also block just to be on the safe side. Excellent. All right. Interesting. My kukri actually alerted a couple of the other Misbegotten, which is fine. Just grab you. Now the one right up there with the axe, that one is a tougher version. So just be aware of that. It's the same version that we killed when we got that smithing stone earlier on. And it looks like, I think that's actually all the Misbegotten except for the leader. But, so what we're going to do is, I'm going to hit him with a kukri. I'm going to switch over to my bewitching branch, and I'm going to run. And we're going to hit this pumpkin head. And now, he is our friend. And as long as we get this Misbegotten to join us... Come on now. He's going very, very slowly. There we go. And tell you what, while he's doing our bidding, let's go ahead and bring another one over. Well, unfortunately, he wasn't able to take care of this one because he missed it. Are we going to get an old fang? Yes, we are. And unfortunately, the pumpkin head has now outlived his usefulness. Normally what I like to do is actually bring a few of them over to him, and they'll almost kill the pumpkin head, and then I just have a couple of quick swings. But here, while I appreciate your sacrifice, it's time for you to be no more. Got a sanctuary stone. We picked up a trio of smithing stones over in this corner. And just over this way, I'm not actually going to climb the ladder, but there's no loot. There is a ladder, however, going up. We're going to just be taking a very, very simply different route up. So climbing up all these bodies, and yes, this is an entire pile of bodies. Now, I don't know how in the world they had this many people in the castle to begin with, but you can see that the rebellion has been pretty successful on the part of the Misbegotten. Grabbing all the smoldering butterflies, that way we can make more of our fire pots. And we're actually about to get a brand new weapon. Definitely a crowd favorite, maybe not as popular as the Zweihander, but inside this chest we get the Claymore. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. We actually are going to use this for just a little bit. You can see the Claymore does require 16 strength in order to one-hand. Of course, that means we only need 11 in order to two-hand, which most of us would be. 13 dexterity, and it has the Lion's Claw skill. Skill of the Redmanes, who fought alongside General Radahn. Somersaults forwards, striking enemies with armament. You're going to see a very, very familiar attack with this weapon. And as we head down, we are going to see we have one soldier just above our head and a couple of Misbegotten who are just laying in wait. Essentially what we're witnessing is an execution. So let's go in, let's use this Lion's Mane, or this Lion's Paw, Ash of War. Yeah, that's right. Big ol' somersault flip. Somersault flip. can't get much more redundant. Got some bolts here, so let's climb the ladder. You actually get a really nice view of Weeping Peninsula here. You can even see all the way to Stormvale Castle. Meanwhile, war is waging on behind us. Let's go ahead and go back to our Uchigatana. Now, you absolutely can just wait for everything to be killed here. Nothing wrong with that. There's also nothing wrong with just giving a little assistance. There we go. Get some more FP back for free. So we have more Misbegotten down there with another unique item. Let's go ahead and take care of that. In fact, just because we haven't been using it and I forgot to actually equip my finger seal. And I want to have this in my main hand. That way I can still have my Sacrificial Axe giving us the bonus. You can see they are pretty weak to fire. There we go. And I don't have enough for another one. That's all right. Oh, nice avoidance. I love knocking them out of the air. Typically, you get that stagger animation so you can get the critical. Now, we did miss a Furl Calling Finger remedy. We'll go back for that. But this is the Steel Wire Torch. A really, really fascinating weapon. It takes 10 strength to wield, 8 dexterity, and it has the Fire Breather skill. Now, it's not great in terms of damage, but Fire Breather, blow into torch flame, spreading flames, and a wide frontward arc. Flames on the ground will continue to burn for a short time, giving you a little bit of damage over time. Now, we will have to use one of my cerulean flasks. There we have it. There's the Furl Calling Finger remedy right here. And just a little backtrack, that'll bring us to this next ladder. As I said, there are more Sites of Grace coming up, so we don't have to be too leery of using our flasks. And I think I meant to use my cerulean, I just use a crimson. That's all right. There we go. So this is the ladder that we saw from down below. Oh, and I didn't realize you were joining me. All right, Fire Breather time. I mean, it's cool, and it's really cheap to use. You can see that the FP cost on the Steel Wire Torch is only 8. It's very, very low. So you get half that back if you get the kill, as long as you have the Sacrificial Axe equipped. Now, this is when we're going to have to start dealing with the Flying Misbegotten, which is when Rejection could very well come in handy. I'm going to get rid of the Steel Wire Torch. It's fun, but it's not necessarily my cup of tea. Also, Blue, always put the lantern on. And Backstep, just for funsies. Right, what were we doing? We were going to get Rejection ready. But I'm also going to pull this enemy first with the Kukri. And let's see, are you going to jump? You sure are. I could probably pull you too before you even take flight. Yes, we can. And do you want to fly now? Interesting, you don't. That's fascinating. I was thinking that he would, but this next one should. So let's just go ahead and run up here. Yep, perfect. And there it is. I absolutely love Rejection for this very reason, and there we go. That was a bit of an accident, but it all worked out very, very nicely. So over here, Smoldering Butterfly, but more importantly, as we drop down, we have our very next Site of Grace, but we're not done in this upper area just yet. Instead, what we want to do is, I'm going to head over here. Oh, and I missed something on the bridge. Goodness gracious. We'll be back. It is in my notes. I just neglected to get it. So we have the one Misbegotten guarding that shiny, but don't be fooled. Because we have another one right here. Knock it down with our Unsheath ability. Sneak up for the backstab. There we go. Grab our smithing stone level 2 times 2. Very nice. By the time we get to Stormvale Castle, we should have enough upgrade materials for 2 plus 4 items. Or 1 plus 5. No, excuse me, 1 plus 6. Math is hard sometimes. And I've only just realized that I'm doing everything out of order. See that item directly by the body pile? Yeah, let me go grab that. And would you look at this? Off of that one Misbegotten who dropped down to his death after we used rejection on him, there's definitely an analogy in there, or an allegory in there somewhere. We got the Misbegotten shortbow. Now the Misbegotten shortbow, it's not really any better necessarily than the regular shortbow. You can see they're extremely similar, but it does have a descaling in strength. It has a 16 strength requirement, but since you're going to be two-handing it, only 11 is required. And yes, the damage is better, ever so slightly, but the range is worse. So if you're looking for a range option as a strength build, you want something nice and lightweight, Misbegotten shortbow, not a terrible option. But shortbow, given its fewer stat requirements and it's slightly lighter, might be better off. But it looks really cool covered in fur. The real reason we came back, though, is this item up here that we just casually strolled right on past. And that is a pair of fire grease. Now, allow me to run back. And now back to our regularly scheduled programming. So right here on this bridge, a golden rune level 2. Back up here past the flying Misbegotten, behind these boxes and barrels, you can see that we do have another small section here. There's some battling going on. Let's just hop down, see if we can't help, well, help ourselves, I guess, not really help the soldiers or the Misbegotten. Interestingly enough, this is just a dead end. Nothing back here besides some more storage and some of these cool barricades. But at this point, enough time has passed that most likely the battle is just about all but won. Look at all these dead Misbegotten. One soldier remaining. Let's grab this other golden rune level 2. And again, we could just let them go at it, or might as well have a little fun, yeah? Of course, he just turns on us immediately. Well, you know what? Again, let's have some fun. Oh, the range is a lot shorter than I realized. There we go. So you can see that rejection does have some pretty good stagger damage, so you are able to break through enemies' guards. Not too bad. And then following up this platform right here, if you remember quite some time ago when we first entered the Weeping Peninsula, we met a young blind woman named Irina, who wanted us to deliver a message to her father Edgar in Castle Morne. Well, here's Edgar.
There's a face I've not seen before. I'm Edgar, warden of this castle, as ordained by Lord Godric himself. But you can see how things have turned out. The menials have all rebelled. They gave me good service, or so I thought. But it seems it was all an act. Foul creatures, as it said, and true enough, they're foul inside and out. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but whatever you come here to do, I'm afraid Castle Morne won't hold much longer. Take this, by way of apology.
And we get a sacrificial twig. If you remember, that takes up a talisman slot and it prevents rune loss. So if you are holding this when you die, you won't drop your runes, or if you've already dropped them and then equip the sacrificial twig, which is my preferred option, then if you die, you still have another chance to recollect all of your runes. Now at this point, we are given the option to give the letter or not. As is typical, if you don't give it now, you still have the option soon, but just bear in mind that this quest is time, well, progression sensitive.
I see. From Irina. Thank you. I mean, you're dead, but I can't leave yet. Even if the castle should fall, as commander, I must remain to ensure the treasured sword of Morne does not fall into the wrong hands.
So he's looking for a treasure sword, or at least he's here to protect it. Now, keep in mind, Edgar is not the leader of this castle. The leader is actually long gone. We're going to talk about that when we get to the boss here in a little bit. Edgar was simply the commander of the troops sworn to protect it. So we're going to learn a little bit more about what happened once we defeat the boss here in a moment. But Edgar's already painted a further picture of the idea that the Misbegotten were the slaves. They were the servants to the soldiers, and they have eventually had enough. And I want to talk a little bit about who might have actually led that rebellion. But again, we'll wait on that just a moment.
If you see Irina, do tell her that her father will come for her once he's fulfilled his duty.
And that is all we can get from Edgar at this time. So at this point, we are going to be backtracking to that one site of grace we saw down below. So we'll just have to run on past this horrific scene and climb back up the ladder here. And skirting around the rubble, dropping down, and we have a site of grace. And at this point, there's actually no way back up other than to fast travel. So there's also no reason not to rest. Get all of our flasks back, get our health back as well. And we're gonna just carefully hop down again, and just get the lay of the land. So that is actually the boss arena right there. There's not a whole lot left to do before that boss. And while you can make the jump over that way and actually drop down the grate, I don't recommend it for a couple of reasons. One, you'll actually be ambushed if you drop down in there. But two, and probably more importantly, if you carefully drop down onto this platform, then you'll grab yourself a stone sword key. And dropping down again. Now we have some Misbegotten that are really in despair, and they're actually not going to do anything to us. Until we start fighting them, that is. But in some of these alcoves, we do have some slimes. And slimes, being a very, very typical RPG enemy, very resistant to melee damage, or at least physical damage. So we head up there with Catch Flame. And not that we even really need to be killing them, because the rune acquisition is so low. Plus, the only thing that these particular slimes can drop are just glass shards. So for now, let's just go ahead and start taking care of some of these Misbegotten. At the very least, it's free FP refills. So careful coming here. Like I said, if you drop down, you do have a slime up there, and you have a Misbegotten in this corner. So let's quickly get the backstab. And this particular item is a trap, because that little slime will drop right on your head if you try to get it first. Let's grab a pickled turtle neck. Now remember, that just increases your stamina regeneration, and we have a ghost. Please help me, I'm of noble blood. If those hideous mongrels eat me, I'll be forever marred. Anything but that, please. Think of the disgrace. So this ghost, which again, represented also by the fungus around him, which I just find so interesting, is more concerned about his lasting legacy and his image with being killed by the Misbegotten than he is the actual death itself. Really fascinating what the upper class thought of these servants. Couple of catch flames, so I'll just do one, and then absolute waste. Why am I punching with a finger seal? Apparently because I can. The most inefficient way I can think of to kill these. Now the way down is actually right here, dropping down onto that rooftop, but there is a talisman up there we want to collect. But we do have one of the slightly stronger Misbegottens right up here, and there's actually no sneaking up on him. So I'm just going to run in, use some unsheath, and jumping R2, knock him down to his feet. There we have it. Grab a smoldering butterfly, and we're going to climb this ladder. And in this ladder, we get a really interesting talisman. And I'll be honest, I've never actually used this in the game itself. I know how it works, but I haven't really found a really good use for it. And that is the Twin Blade Talisman. The Twin Blade Talisman increases the damage of the last hit in your combo. So when you're doing your light attack combo, you can see here that the Uchigatana has a 4-hit combo. If I'm using the Twin Blade Talisman, that final hit will deal 20% more damage. It's not a bad damage boost, I simply haven't found a really good chance to use it. Now, if you have a build that incorporates that talisman, I would love to hear about it down in the comments below. Now we're going to hop down. Now, if you've been using your Crimson Flask up till now, there is a Teardrop Scarab that can replenish it. We haven't had to do that just yet. Behind the tree on this corpse, we get 3 more Tarnished Golden Sunflowers. There is the Scarab. I'll just leave him to his own devices. And we're just following these rocks around. Hop down here. Now, this next room, surprisingly, can get incredibly dangerous. And that is because there are a number of rats and a Misbegotten down below. So I'm going to grab the Smithing Stone level 2. And again, in platforming, it's always best, I find, to just point the camera down before you walk straight off. Now, if you're lucky, we still have all of our firebombs equipped. If you're lucky, you might actually be able to kill at least one enemy from the rafters, especially this rat being over near the door. Able to get him. Perfect. See if we can target any more. Otherwise, if you drop down, you're going to be ambushed very quickly. Okay, so we got the Misbegotten. We could almost get that rat, but it looks like it's not going to be for us. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop down towards that door, and I'm immediately going to lock onto the next rat. And I'm just going to use fire bombs. It's the safest way, I find. In fact, since they're grouped together, it doesn't matter because we're still going to miss. But that's all right. Guard counter later. Hey, we got the Iron Cleaver, really cool weapon from the Misbegotten here. This is just a chance drop, much like the Misbegotten short bow. And we'll find it. There it is. Iron Cleaver. Technically, it is an axe that comes with the Wild Strike skill. It has 15 strength requirement with a dexterity of 7. A C strength scaling right away without any upgrading. Not bad at all. And there we have the whip. The whip, a fan favorite. Well, at least it's one of my favorites. I actually went through the entirety of Dark Souls 3 whip only. And let me just tell you, Madeir was a whole lot of fun. Now, the whip only requires 8 strength to wield, 14 dexterity. The nice thing is it cannot be parried and it cannot be blocked, or it can't be fully blocked. You will always take chip damage no matter what kind of shield you're using. The downside, you can't deal any criticals, and that makes sense because have you ever tried to thrust a whip? Well, at least this particular whip. Now back here, don't miss it. You actually have another Site of Grace already, which is great because we do have the boss coming up. And I will go ahead and rest here. No reason not to yet again. So up ahead, we have a couple more Misbegotten before we drop down, and we do have a number of jellyfish, but all of them are peaceful, so as long as you don't bother them, they won't bother you. Let's just lead this with a couple of charged R2s. And that was a poorly timed roll, as is that one. There we go. Watch this flying one. Might as well get rejection out. Once again, landing on the wall there is not ideal. Luckily, there's a dedicated jump button. And since we did take just a little bit of damage, let's go ahead and use Urgent Heal. Might as well do it 2 times. And we have 8 throwing daggers. We have a ladder heading down right here. And we're actually going to be making our way to that shiny right there. It's nothing too drastically important, but it is to us because, you know, everything possible and whatnot. Do have a giant crab. And I recommend you take care of him instead of just leaving him because he will trap you. And there we go. That bleed buildup is perfect. Grab some crab eggs. And right in here we get 15 fire arrows. And you know what? These crabs, since they are just a one-shot, I kind of feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't just get the free FP. And lastly, before we approach the fog gate, right around the backside here, with this one more item to collect. And we have a Somber Smithing Stone level 1. And that is it for Castle Morne, apart from the boss fight. And if you're struggling with this boss, and it can be a bit of a challenge, fortunately, if you talk to Edgar, you do have the ability to summon Castellan? You can summon Edgar if you wish, and he can prove to be a huge help in this fight. Now this fight, this is another Misbegotten. This is the Leonine Misbegotten. Much faster, a lot more health, and he hits incredibly hard. Not to mention, he has an Ash of War of his own. They are weakest to fire, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of my fire pots, my bewitching branches, and my kukris, and instead I'm going to put on fire grease. We should be able to complete this fight with 2, maybe 3 of these if needed. And I'm not really going to be focusing on my incantations except possibly catch flames if we can get him when he's coming up. But I'm going to be using my Flask of Wonders Physic towards the beginning of the fight, and then we're just going to be going from there. Hopefully Bubble Tear going to protect us again just from that initial hit. A little like that one. And back up. Wait for the big jump. Okay, watch it. Back up. Jumping R2. Unsheath, knock him down. Very good. Might actually switch to catch flame here. Good damage. However, taking a lot more damage than I'd like, so let's back up. And we're gonna have to use our last Flask of Crimson Tears. Not going exactly as planned. Back up. Let's see if we can get him to do a big combo. When he does that, that is a big, big swing. We don't want to be hit by that. Luckily, our flask is still going, meaning we are getting the benefit. We are getting the benefit of the regen, and there we go. Leonine Misbegotten, done. Not my finest fight. And you know what? Just because we can, let's go ahead and pop one of our Gold Pickle Foul Feet, 4,900 runes, normally 3,800, and we get the Grafted Blade Greatsword. This is actually our very first of the legendary armaments. There are a total of 9 of these to collect, and in order to get the achievement, you will need to get all 9. This is the very first and earliest one you can get. This is an absolutely, positively massive greatsword. Of course, I always go the wrong direction. You can see here that it weighs 21 weight units. It has a strength requirement of 40 in order to one-hand. Now, of course, because of the strength bonus, only 27 strength is required to two-handed, a dexterity requirement of 14, and the special Ash of War is called Oath of Vengeance. Swear an oath upon the greatsword to avenge the clan, temporarily raising all attributes for a certain duration. While the oath's effects are active, poise will also be increased. Oath of Vengeance now lasts for 60 seconds. Prior to patch 1.07, it was only 30. They doubled its effective time, and it increases every stat by 5. It's absolutely incredible. You essentially get 40 free levels for an entire minute, not to mention it deals so much damage. The Storied Sword of Castle Morne, a revenger's weapon. It is burdened with oceans of anger and regret. A lone surviving champion from a country now vanished was so determined to continue fighting that he claimed the swords of an entire clan of warriors. If you combine this with the lore sword that we found outside of Castle Morne, the one that stated a lone hero fights for his vengeance only to fall at the hand of Lord Godfrey, it starts to paint a picture of who was leading this castle way back when. However, it's never outrightly stated. I did some digging into this, and there are a number of theories out there, and the one that I believe is most likely to be true, due to his connection with the Misbegotten, is Radagon. And I'm going to leave it at that. But I am going to put some really interesting conversations from Reddit posts that I found about the theories, and I'm going to put them in the description if you want to follow up with it. Now, what I really like about this is that it actually has 80 physical damage negation and 53 guard boost, meaning that this is a really effective shield. And you might see that in an episode coming up, an interesting way that we can use that at our current stats to deal incredible damage to an upcoming boss. Now, I also mentioned, however, that I was going to briefly mention who led this rebellion, the rebellion of the Misbegotten against the soldiers. I think there's potentially a lot to be said that Hugh the blacksmith actually led the rebellion. There is a hammer that we'll get in Stormvale Castle, the brick hammer, that states that it was wielded by a laborer who led a rebellion and later became a champion himself. It's quite possible to me that Hugh was a blacksmith here in Castle Morne. He was fed up with his people's treatment, and then he led this rebellion, possibly even with the blessing of Radagon himself. And he took over Castle Morne, and as punishment, that is why he's now chained up in Round Table Hold. Now, that's not my own personal theory. I read that in one of the Reddit posts, and it just seemed to stick. So let me know what you think in the comments below. We're just about done, but before we wrap up, we're going to go check in on Edgar, and then we're going to check on Arena. So because there's no way back up all the way to Edgar, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to warp back. We want to make sure we go... Of course, we don't actually have to rest, something I forget routinely. We can't go to behind the castle or beside the rampart jail. We do have to start back at Castle Morne Lift. I'll go ahead and speed this up. I'm not going to be fighting any enemies along the way. I'll just be running all the way to Edgar.
I'm in your debt for keeping the sword from those fallen creatures. I'm no longer bound by duty. Once I've rescued Arena, I will spend my remaining days with her. Thanks to you, I will be reunited with Arena and devote my remaining days to her. Arena has a gentle nature, though. I only hope it remains intact.
So now, let's check in on Arena. Unfortunately, I'm not able to warp from here because the enemies are alerted to my position. So instead, what I need to do is apparently take a massive risk. Hopefully, I can climb this ladder. Uh-oh. Things have gone from bad to worse. Look at that. I've grown wings. See? Everything's fine. Right, as I was saying, now that we've rested and their aggression is no longer, let's go check in on Arena. All the way back at the Bridge of Sacrifice.
Irina, how could this be? My daughter does the fault lies with me. I chose duty over my daughter's safety. And that is how fate has answered. I'll find them. The foul wretches responsible for this. I'll hunt them down and exterminate every last one of them. Rest assured, Irina, it will be done.
And judging by that iron cleaver, it certainly was a misbegotten who helped Irina breathe her last. Well, on that rather despondent note, that is going to do it for this episode of Everything Possible in Elden Ring. I hope you learned something, and if you did, please let me know down below what you learned. And if I missed something, or if you have a better strategy for the Leonine Misbegotten, let me know that too so we can all keep learning. But I want to thank you all so much for watching, and I don't have my bow equipped, so please bear with me. There it is, and I will see you next time.